Chapter 1: Shadows of War and a Fallen Hero. Commander Jace Alaric once carved his name into the very fabric of the galaxy's most brutal battlefields, a starfighter ace revered and feared in equal measure across the sprawling Alliance fleet. His reputation was not merely a product of his lethal precision or unmatched reflexes, but of his unyielding will, the kind of resolve forged only in the crucible of combat, where every heartbeat might be the last, and every maneuver spelled survival or oblivion. Jace had danced on the edge of death more times than he cared to count, weaving through enemy firestorms with the grace of a comet blazing across the void. But all of that, the glory, the adrenaline, the camaraderie of the cockpit, was now locked behind a wall of cold metal and synthetic limbs, distant memories of a life violently severed by a single fateful battle that had changed everything. The crash was seared into his mind like a burning brand, the final moments of that harrowing fight replaying with relentless clarity. A fleet of unknown alien warships had descended upon a remote Alliance outpost, their technology alien and devastating, shattering decades of peace and security in a matter of hours. Jace had led the desperate counterattack, his fighters slicing through the enemy ranks, taking down ship after ship with ruthless efficiency. But the tide had turned swiftly and mercilessly. A colossal alien dreadnought had singled him out, its plasma barrage ripping through his shields and shattering the hull of his starfighter. Jace ejected into the void, watching helplessly as his ship was consumed by fire and debris. He drifted in the emptiness of space, the cold biting through his suit as he waited for rescue that never came in time. When he awoke on the med bay of an orbital hospital, his legs were gone, the result of injuries too severe to salvage. The pilot who had danced with death in the skies now faced a new, cruel reality: confinement, vulnerability, and the slow erosion of purpose. For months, the sterile halls of the medical facility became his prison. The artificial limbs strapped to his hips were crude replacements that never quite obeyed his commands, a frustrating reminder of what he had lost. Visitors came and went, commanders who praised his sacrifice, doctors who offered treatments, friends who tried to uplift his spirits, but Jace remained withdrawn, a shadow of the fierce warrior he once was. He spent hours staring out at the stars beyond the observation window, the vastness of space a cold mirror to his own isolation. His mind was a battlefield, haunted by flashes of combat, by the faces of fallen comrades, by the howling silence where once there was the roar of engines and the pulse of weaponry. Despite the world's adulation, he felt useless, grounded in a chair that confined his body and chained his spirit. But fate, as it often does, has a way of bending the strongest wills toward a purpose yet unknown. The galaxy was darkening. Rumors of an alien fleet, vast, merciless, and technologically superior, spread like wildfire through the Alliance corridors. Intelligence reports painted grim pictures of entire star systems falling silent, their fleets overwhelmed by enemy ships that moved with terrifying coordination and destructive power. The outpost where Jace had fallen was just the first casualty in a campaign that threatened to unravel the fragile peace and bring the galaxy to its knees. Desperation crept into the highest councils, and hope grew scarce. It was in this maelstrom of fear and uncertainty that the call came for Jace, the fallen pilot, to return not just to the skies, but to the fate of all humanity. The Alliance fleet's leadership convened in secret chambers aboard the massive flagship Aegis Prime, debating their dwindling options. They had weaponry, yes, but nothing that could turn the tide against the alien technology, which defied conventional tactics and overwhelmed even the most advanced human ships. They needed a miracle, a hero who could think and fight beyond protocol, someone with an instinct honed by countless battles. Jace's name resurfaced amid whispers and hope. Despite his injuries, his mind remained sharp, his tactical brilliance undiminished. With the latest advancements in neural interfaces and prosthetics, there was a chance to link his remaining faculties to a next-generation combat rig, a specialized exosuit and neural control system designed to compensate for his disabilities and enhance his capabilities beyond human limits. It was a gamble, a fusion of man and machine that teetered on the edge of science and desperation. Jace was reluctant at first, haunted by his failure and the scars that ran deeper than flesh and bone. The idea of returning to the cockpit, even in this new form, ignited a storm of memories, pain, loss, and the crushing weight of responsibility. But when news arrived that the alien fleet was moving closer, targeting Earth's outer colonies with devastating precision, the fire within him rekindled. He remembered his comrades, the innocent lives caught in the crossfire, the countless souls depending on someone willing to stand against the darkness. His decision was made not in a grand ceremony, but in the quiet moments alone, staring at the stars that still called him home. He would rise again, not just as a pilot, but as a symbol of defiance and hope. The rehabilitation was grueling. Days blurred into nights as Jace struggled to synchronize his mind with the exosuit, a marvel of engineering that promised mobility, power, and precision. The neural interface translated his thoughts into fluid movements, artificial limbs responding to his commands with uncanny speed. Yet mastering the system required more than technology. It demanded discipline, patience, and sheer willpower. There were countless failures, jerky motions, painful feedback, moments of doubt. But Jace pressed on, driven by an unshakable determination. His instructors, engineers, and medics watched in awe as the once broken pilot began to reclaim his place in a new kind of war. Weeks later, clad in the sleek black armor of the combat exosuit, Jace stood on the deck of a newly constructed starfighter, the Valkyrie 7, a vessel designed for agility and raw firepower, paired perfectly with its pilot's enhanced capabilities. The neural link between man and machine was seamless, a fusion of instinct and innovation that made Jace faster, stronger, and more precise than ever before. Yet beneath the armor, beneath the cutting-edge tech, was a man tempered by loss but unyielding in purpose. The fleet awaited him, the alien menace looming like a storm on the horizon. And Jace Alaric, the pilot who had lost his legs but not his spirit, was ready to become the galaxy's last hope. The call to battle came suddenly. The alien fleet breached the outer defenses of the Sol system, their ships cutting through the void with devastating speed and ruthless efficiency. Warning sirens blared, crews scrambled to stations, and the sky was torn apart by the first salvo of a conflict that would decide the fate of humanity. Jace's voice was calm but resolute as he engaged the Valkyrie 7's thrusters, neural commands weaving through the cockpit as the ship responded like an extension of his own body. He launched into the fray, dodging torrents of plasma fire, weaving through debris, and locking weapons onto enemy vessels. The exhilaration of combat surged through him, sharp and raw, a reminder that despite everything lost, he was alive, and he was fighting. But this battle was unlike any before. The aliens employed tactics that defied logic, their ships shifting formations, cloaking, and striking with terrifying precision. Many fighters were lost in the opening moments, overwhelmed by sheer numbers and technology. Jace realized that to turn the tide, he would need to break their strategy, to find the weakness hidden beneath layers of advanced warfare. His mind raced, analyzing patterns, predicting movements, and exploiting the slightest openings. He became a ghost in the chaos, a blade cutting through the enemy lines with surgical efficiency. The fleet watched in stunned silence as their most skilled pilot, reborn and transformed, carved a path of hope through the darkness. As the battle escalated, Jace's neural interface pushed his body and mind to the limits. The exosuit provided feedback, pain, strain, but also incredible power. Sweat beaded on his brow as he maneuvered through space with breathtaking agility, the memories of his past life fueling every decision. He recalled the faces of those lost, the promises made, and the burning conviction that failure was not an option. Behind the cockpit's reinforced glass, his eyes burned with fierce determination, unyielding as the stars themselves. But the alien fleet was relentless. Just when victory seemed within reach, a colossal dreadnought emerged from the depths, a behemoth of destructive force that dwarfed all others. Its weapons unleashed torrents of energy that ripped through human ships like paper. The fleet faltered, chaos spreading through the ranks. Jace knew that to save his comrades, he had to confront this Leviathan directly. With a surge of will, he pushed the Valkyrie 7 into the heart of the battle, dodging the dreadnought's attacks, and seeking the weak points hidden beneath its armor. It was a dance of death and defiance, man and machine united in a desperate gambit. In those critical moments, Jace's thoughts became clearer than ever. His loss, his pain, and his struggle had forged him into something greater, a symbol of resilience, a beacon in the darkness. And as he prepared to strike the final blow, the fate of the fleet, the planet, and humanity itself rested on his shoulders. Chapter 2. Rebirth in the Void and the Awakening of a Warrior. The sterile walls of the med bay gave way to the endless expanse of stars beyond the massive observation windows. Yet Commander Jace Alaric's gaze remained fixed inward, locked on memories and possibilities. His body was a fragile vessel, broken in the most fundamental way. His legs, lost to the cruel hand of war, were replaced now by synthetic limbs that promised mobility but felt foreign, mechanical extensions rather than the organic limbs he once commanded with effortless precision. Yet beneath that physical fragility burned a fierce fire, a tempest of determination that refused to be snuffed out by pain or despair. In this new chapter of his existence, Jace was learning to live again, to fight again, but the battlefield had changed, and so too would he have to change. The engineers and medical scientists of the Alliance had worked tirelessly to integrate Jace with the most advanced neural interface technology ever developed, a direct mind-machine link that would allow him to pilot an experimental exosuit, a fusion of human intuition and cutting-edge machinery. The process was painstaking, a crucible of trial and error, as his brain adapted to controlling artificial limbs and systems that required not only strength but subtlety and precision. Each day was a test of endurance, his mind wrestling with the ghost of his former reflexes while mastering new pathways of control. The suit responded to his thoughts, anticipating commands with the speed of light, but the feedback loop of synthetic sensation was alien and sometimes overwhelming. There were moments when the suit moved without his will, and others when his commands faltered, caught in the limbo between man and machine. In the quiet hours of recovery, when the medical teams had left and the med bay was bathed only in the soft hum of life support systems, Jace wrestled with doubt. Was he still the pilot who had carved his legend in the stars? Or was he now a relic, a man displaced by time and circumstance? The loss of his legs was more than a physical wound. It was a blow to his identity, a shattering of the very essence that had defined him for so long. Yet, buried beneath the fear and frustration, a spark persisted, a reminder of why he fought, why he survived. It was for the faces of those who depended on him, the countless innocents swept up in the tide of war, and the hope that even a broken man could rise to become the shield against annihilation. The Alliance command did not wait for him to be whole before thrusting him back into the fray. The alien fleet had advanced rapidly, their mysterious technology and ruthless tactics overwhelming the outer defenses. Entire star systems were silenced, their fleets reduced to smoldering wrecks. The desperation gripping the leadership was palpable. Jace was summoned to the flagship Aegis Prime, not merely as a soldier, but as the embodiment of a last hope, an ace pilot reborn through science and grit, the one who could make the impossible possible. The briefing room was a hive of tension and resolve as Jace sat among commanders and strategists, his exosuit adapting to his seated form, neural links connecting him to vast databases and battlefield simulations. The stakes were monumental, the pressure immense. Training became a whirlwind of simulations and real-world trials. The Valkyrie 7, a sleek starfighter crafted for maximum agility and firepower, was not merely a machine but an extension of Jace's will and mind. The neural interface allowed seamless control, his thoughts directing the ship with unprecedented speed and nuance. Yet, the integration was imperfect. His body still ached from injuries, and the exosuit's feedback often overwhelmed his senses with artificial pain or pressure. But day by day, he adapted, honing a new kind of reflex, one that merged human instinct with technological precision. His instructors marveled at the speed of his progress, but Jace's mind was elsewhere, focused on the oncoming storm and the lives that depended on his readiness. During long hours alone in the hangar, Jace would stare at the stars beyond the viewport, feeling the ghost of his former self lingering in the vastness. Memories of dogfights, of narrow escapes, of comrades lost and promises broken, haunted him. Yet each day he forced himself forward, pushing through pain and doubt, driven by a sense of duty that transcended his own suffering. He began to believe that this new form, this fusion of man and machine, was not a limitation but a new beginning, a way to fight that was born from the very ashes of his defeat. The exosuit became his armor and his prison, a symbol of both his losses and his potential. The alien threat loomed larger with each passing moment. Intelligence reports revealed fleets more massive and coordinated than anything humanity had faced before. The aliens' technology bent the laws of physics as known to the Alliance, cloaking devices that rendered entire squadrons invisible, weapons that tore through shields as if they were paper, and AI-controlled vessels that adapted in real time to tactics and strategy. Conventional warfare was no longer sufficient. They needed something different, someone who could think and react beyond protocol, who could use intuition and unorthodox tactics to exploit weaknesses in a seemingly invincible foe. Jace was that someone. When the call finally came, it was swift and merciless. The alien fleet breached the outer defense grid of the Sol system, launching a coordinated strike aimed at Earth's orbital defenses and critical infrastructure. Sirens blared across military installations, and fleets scrambled to respond to the existential threat. Jace suited up, the exosuit locking into place around his torso and limbs, neural connectors integrating with his brainstem. The familiar rush of adrenaline surged through him, the cockpit of the Valkyrie, 7 enveloping him like a second skin. He was no longer the man confined to a chair, but a warrior reborn, ready to carve a path through the void and into the heart of the enemy. The battle erupted in a storm of fire and light. Jace's ship danced through the chaos with grace and lethal efficiency, weaving between plasma bursts and missile trails. His neural interface translated every thought into action, turning split-second decisions into precise maneuvers. He targeted enemy vessels, exploiting gaps in their formation, and coordinated with other pilots through the ship's advanced comms system. But the enemy was relentless. Alien dreadnoughts unleashed torrents of energy, dwarfing human warships and shattering defenses. The sky burned with the fury of annihilation, and many brave souls were lost. In the midst of this inferno, Jace spotted a critical vulnerability, a control node on the largest dreadnought that, if destroyed, could cripple its weapons and open a window for the Alliance fleet. Racing through enemy fire, he focused all his skill and will on reaching the target. The exosuit amplified his reflexes, but the danger was immense. As he closed in, the dreadnought unleashed a devastating barrage that rocked the Valkyrie, 7, threatening to tear it apart. Pain flared through Jace's artificial limbs as the feedback loop screamed, but he pushed on, a singular purpose burning in his heart. With a final surge, he fired a precise salvo that struck the control node, triggering a cascade of explosions that echoed through the battlefield. The dreadnought faltered, its weapons systems shutting down, and the tide of battle shifted. The alien fleet, sensing defeat, began to retreat, their forces scattering into the dark void. Victory was hard-won and costly, but it was a testament to the resilience of a man who had lost much but refused to surrender. As the dust settled and the survivors regrouped, Jace sat once more in the cockpit, his breath heavy but steady. Around him, comrades approached, their faces a mixture of relief and admiration. For the first time in months, he allowed himself a faint smile, a recognition that despite the scars, despite the loss, he had found a new purpose. The war was far from over, and the challenges ahead would be greater still. But Jace Alaric, the pilot who had lost his legs but not his spirit, had become the galaxy's beacon of hope, a symbol that even in the darkest nights, a warrior could rise again. Chapter 3. Into the Maelstrom, the Reckoning of a Fallen Hero. The vastness of space stretched before Commander Jace Alaric like a dark, endless ocean, punctuated only by the distant pinpricks of stars, silent witnesses to the unfolding drama that would determine the fate of humanity. Clad in the advanced neural-linked exosuit, his body a blend of synthetic limbs and organic resilience, Jace felt a surge of determination flood through him as the Valkyrie, 7 roared to life. The cockpit, bathed in the glow of countless instruments and holographic displays, was no longer just a machine, but an extension of his very mind and spirit. Every sensor, every control, every weapon system responded fluidly to his thoughts, a perfect symphony of human will and technological marvel. Yet, beneath this fusion of flesh and metal, the echoes of his past battles, the scars of his losses, and the weight of responsibility pressed upon him with unyielding intensity. The alien fleet had advanced like a storm across the frontier, their ships moving with chilling precision and coordination, far beyond anything the Alliance had encountered before. These vessels were not mere machines. They were manifestations of an intelligence that had evolved beyond human comprehension, employing adaptive tactics and technology that defied established warfare doctrines. Cloaking fields flickered in and out of visibility, weapon systems altered their frequencies to bypass shields, and autonomous drones swarmed like locusts, overwhelming conventional defenses with relentless efficiency. Entire planetary systems had fallen under this shadow, their stars darkened by silence and ruin. The Sol system was now the last bastion, a fragile jewel under siege, and Jace was its vanguard. As the Valkyrie, Seven surged forward into the heart of the conflict. Jace's mind became a tempest of strategy and instinct. His neural interface processed terabytes of real-time data, from ship trajectories and weapon signatures to environmental hazards and squadron statuses. His body, augmented by the exosuit's strength and reflex enhancements, executed maneuvers no human pilot could match, weaving through a maelstrom of plasma, fire, and debris with lethal grace. Yet despite the technological edge, the battle was brutal, a visceral clash where every decision carried the weight of life or death. Ships exploded in brilliant cascades of fire, comrades fell to the void, and the eerie silence of space was broken only by the cries of alarm and the roar of engines. In this crucible of war, Jace found clarity. His years as a starfighter had honed his senses to razor sharpness, and his mind adapted rapidly to the demands of his new form. He anticipated enemy moves not just through data, but through a deep, intuitive understanding of combat, the kind born from countless battles fought in the void's unforgiving theater. Each enemy ship became a puzzle to solve, each formation a challenge to break. His attacks were surgical, aimed at crippling command nodes, severing communication arrays, and dismantling key weapon systems. The Valkyrie, 7 was a symphony of destruction under his command, its every shot a note in a deadly melody. Yet amidst the chaos, Jace's thoughts often drifted to the crew he protected, the young pilots, engineers, and soldiers who fought beside him. He saw their faces in fleeting moments, etched with fear and determination, courage and desperation. He carried the weight of their lives as heavily as his own wounds, each victory a shared triumph, each loss a shared grief. The memory of his fallen comrades fueled a burning resolve not just to survive, but to prevail. The alien threat was vast, but humanity's spirit, embodied in the battered yet unbroken fleet, was fiercer still. Suddenly, the battle shifted. Sensors detected the approach of an enormous dreadnought, a behemoth of alien engineering whose presence altered the fabric of the conflict. Its hull was a fortress of shifting energy fields and adaptive armor, bristling with weapons that unleashed devastating barges capable of annihilating entire squadrons. The dreadnought's arrival sent ripples through the Alliance fleet, its sheer power a grim reminder of the stakes. Many ships faltered, their shields overwhelmed, their crews thrown into disarray. Jace knew that confronting this titan was both a necessity and a gamble. To strike it down would turn the tide. To fail would mean doom for all. With steely determination, Jace maneuvered the Valkyrie, 7 toward the dreadnought's exposed flanks, exploiting gaps revealed by the ship's massive energy discharges. The neural interface heightened his senses, allowing him to perceive the dreadnought's subtle mechanical rhythms and shield fluctuations. Each movement was calculated, each decision a razor's edge between success and destruction. Enemy fighters swarmed to intercept, and the cockpit erupted in a storm of alerts and countermeasures. Jace's voice was calm, yet commanding as he coordinated with wingmen, orchestrating a dance of coordinated strikes and evasive maneuvers that pushed the dreadnought's defenses to their limits. The exosuit sent bursts of feedback pain and strain mingled with exhilaration as Jace pushed his body beyond its natural limits. He felt every impact, every acceleration, every micro-adjustment as if it were his own flesh and bone, a testament to the seamless bond between man and machine. His mind sharpened, filtering out distractions, focusing on the singular goal. He unleashed a barrage of missiles and plasma charges, targeting the dreadnought's power conduits and weapon arrays. Explosions blossomed in fiery cascades across the alien giant's hull, systems faltering, weapons silenced one by one. But the dreadnought was not defeated yet. In retaliation, it unleashed a devastating energy wave that threw Jace's fighter violently off course, sending alarms screaming through the cockpit. The Valkyrie, 7 groaned under the assault, systems flickering and warning lights blazing. Jace gritted his teeth, fighting the feedback and stabilizing the craft with every ounce of skill and willpower. The neural link surged, the exosuit amplifying his recovery efforts as he regained control, pulling the fighter back into the fray with unwavering resolve. The battle reached its crescendo as Jace identified the dreadnought's core reactor, a glowing nexus of raw power deep within its armored hull. If he could destroy it, the massive ship would be crippled beyond repair. With a deep breath, he initiated a daring assault, weaving through a hailstorm of fire and debris to deliver a precise strike. The reactor erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, sending shockwaves rippling through the void. The dreadnought convulsed and then exploded in a blaze that lit the darkness, a brilliant beacon of victory and sacrifice. As the enemy fleet scattered, retreating into the shadows from which they had come, Jace guided the battered Valkyrie, 7 back, toward the Alliance flagship. The stars, once cold and distant, now seemed to shine with renewed hope. The pilot who had lost his legs, but never his spirit, had turned the tide of battle, becoming the symbol of humanity's resilience in the face of overwhelming darkness. Yet, even in victory, Jace knew the war was far from over. The alien fleet's true purpose remained shrouded in mystery, their full strength yet to be revealed. But as he landed amidst cheers and tears, surrounded by comrades who looked upon him not as a broken man, but as a hero reborn, he felt something he had thought lost forever, a future worth fighting for. Chapter 4: Redemption, Sacrifice, and the Dawn of a New Era. The aftermath of the dreadnought's destruction rippled across the void like a seismic shockwave, sending the alien fleet into a chaotic retreat. Yet the victory was bittersweet. The scars of battle etched deep into every hull, every soul, and every whisper of hope still clung tenuously to the fragile fabric of humanity's survival. Commander Jace Alaric felt the weight of it all pressing down upon him as the Valkyrie, 7 limped back into the relative sanctuary of the Aegis Prime's hangar bay. His body ached in ways both new and familiar, the exosuit's neural feedback amplifying every ache and pain, the memories of every loss and every narrow escape flooding his mind in an endless torrent. But beneath the fatigue, beneath the storm of doubt and fear, burned an unquenchable fire, the fire of a warrior reborn, a beacon for those who still dared to dream of peace. The medics swarmed with practiced efficiency, tending to wounds that were as much mental as physical. Jace allowed himself a rare moment of vulnerability. Eyes closing, his hands worked to stabilize systems and relieve the neural strain. Around him, the hangar was alive with the sounds of a fleet preparing for what would come next. Repairs, briefings, the quiet murmurs of those who refused to surrender. The weight of command, once lifted, now pressed heavier than ever, for the war was far from over. Intelligence had confirmed that the alien forces were not a singular menace but a vast, coordinated armada, their true intentions veiled behind inscrutable motives and advanced technology. The battle on the edge of the Sol system was but the opening salvo in a conflict that threatened to engulf the entire galaxy. Despite the grim horizon, Jace was resolute. The exosuit that once seemed a cage was now a symbol of his renewed strength and purpose. His mind had adapted, and so had his spirit. With every training session, every simulation, and every combat sortie, he grew more attuned to the fusion of human will and machine precision. The Valkyrie, 7 was no longer just a fighter. It was an extension of himself, capable of feats that defied the limits of human endurance. Yet with this power came responsibility, not only to his comrades and his command, but to the countless innocents whose lives hung in the balance. Each victory came at a cost, each choice a crossroad between survival and sacrifice. The Aegis Prime's War Council convened in the days that followed, a gathering of minds desperate to forge a path through the encroaching darkness. Jace sat among generals and strategists, his voice carrying the weight of frontline experience and the insight born of neural-linked combat. They deliberated over intercepted transmissions, battle damage reports, and tactical simulations, piecing together the puzzle of the alien threat. The enemy's technology was unlike anything humanity had seen: self-repairing ships, adaptive cloaking, and weapons that seemed to bend space itself. Conventional weapons were often rendered useless against their advanced shielding. It became clear that the war would require not just firepower but ingenuity, unity, and sacrifice on a scale never before imagined. Amid these grave discussions, Jace found unexpected solace in the growing camaraderie among the fleet's pilots and crews. Many saw in him a symbol of resilience, a man who had faced loss and emerged stronger, who embodied the indomitable spirit of humanity. Pilots gathered around to share stories, exchange tactics, and forge bonds that transcended rank and station. The children of war, young recruits who had known nothing but conflict, looked to Jace as a mentor and a guardian, their faces reflecting the same hope and determination that had sustained him. In the cold steel corridors of the flagship, laughter and resolve wove together, a fragile but vital thread holding the fleet's heart beating against the shadow of annihilation. Then came the mission that would define not only the war, but the future of humanity itself. Intelligence revealed the location of the alien fleet's command nexus, a massive, orbiting fortress housing the central AI that coordinated their operations across light years. Destroying it would cripple the enemy's ability to wage coordinated war, potentially turning the tide. But the fortress was guarded by fleets of warships, automated defenses, and environmental hazards designed to repel any assault. The mission was a suicide run in all but name, and the fleet's commanders turned to Jace, the pilot who had defied fate once and was believed to be the only one with the skill and will to lead the strike. Preparation was intense and exhaustive. Jace worked with engineers to modify the Valkyrie 7 for the mission, enhancing stealth capabilities, integrating experimental weapons, and optimizing neural link responsiveness for the unforgiving environment. He spent hours in the simulator, mapping approaches, rehearsing maneuvers, and preparing for the possibility of failure. His mind was sharp, but his heart carried the heavy burden of what lay ahead. The pilots chosen for the mission were the best, seasoned veterans, and rising stars, each aware that many might not return. In their eyes, Jace saw reflections of his own fears and hopes, and he vowed to lead them with every ounce of courage he possessed. As the fleet approached the alien fortress, a vast construct shimmering with energy fields and pulsating with unnatural light, the silence before battle was deafening. Jace's cockpit was a sanctuary of focused calm amidst the storm to come. Neural feedback coursed through him, a constant reminder of the symbiotic bond between pilot and machine. The Valkyrie 7 responded like a living creature, anticipating his commands and translating instinct into action. With a steady breath, Jace launched the assault, weaving through enemy patrols and automated defenses with deadly precision. The battle was a maelstrom of light and sound, lasers streaking like comets, explosions blooming in fiery cascades, and the relentless drone of engines pushing the limits of speed and agility. Deep within the fortress, Jace and his squadron navigated labyrinthine corridors and tight defense grids, battling against drone swarms and automated turrets. Communication was constant and vital. Every pilot's survival depended on split-second coordination and unbreakable trust. The neural link amplified Jace's ability to command, his thoughts rippling across the network to guide and protect his comrades. Yet the enemy was adaptive, their AI evolving in real time, deploying countermeasures that forced the pilots to innovate and improvise. The battle was as much a contest of minds as of weapons, a deadly dance where one mistake meant annihilation. In the heart of the fortress, Jace faced the central AI core, a vast, pulsating nexus of light and code that governed the alien fleet's operations. The core was protected by layers of energy shields and security protocols that resisted conventional attack. Jace engaged his ship's experimental weapon systems, targeting weak points identified through intelligence and battle experience. The neural interface heightened his senses, guiding each shot with precision born of desperation and resolve. The core reacted, unleashing waves of defensive energy and hacking attempts aimed at severing the neural link and crippling the Valkyrie 7. Jace's body screamed with pain as the exosuit's feedback loops intensified, but his mind remained focused, refusing to yield. With a final, desperate burst, Jace's assault shattered the core's defenses, triggering a cascade failure that rippled through the fortress's systems. Explosions rocked the structure as the AI's control over the fleet flickered and died. The alien ships began to lose coordination, drifting aimlessly or retreating into the void. The tide of war turned. As the fortress crumbled around him, Jace guided the Valkyrie 7 and the surviving pilots to escape, weaving through debris and collapsing corridors with unmatched skill. The fleet, freed from the AI's grip, rallied to pursue the retreating enemy, securing a decisive victory that would echo through history. Exhausted but triumphant, Jace returned to the Aegis Prime, greeted by cheers and tears from a fleet reborn. His journey, from broken man to symbol of hope, was complete, yet he knew the path ahead was still fraught with peril and sacrifice. The war was won, but peace was fragile. Humanity's survival depended not just on technology and strategy, but on the indomitable spirit that Jace embodied, a spirit forged in loss, tempered by resilience, and ignited by hope. Under the endless stars, Commander Jace Alaric looked toward the horizon, ready to lead humanity into a new era, his soul forever entwined with the infinite dance of war and peace among the stars. The destruction of the alien fortress marked a turning point not only in the war, but in the very soul of humanity's fight for survival. Yet, even as the echoes of battle faded into the void and the fleeing remnants of the alien fleet dispersed like shadows before dawn, the cost of victory weighed heavily on Commander Jace Alaric. He had led the charge into the heart of darkness, wielding both human ingenuity and the extraordinary capabilities of his exosuit, but the wounds, both physical and invisible, ran deep. In the quiet moments after the storm, as the Valkyrie 7 drifted toward the sanctuary of the Aegis Prime, Jace felt the full measure of his journey, the relentless drive, the sacrifices made, and the fragile hope he now carried like a torch against the encroaching night. Landing in the sprawling hangar bay, Jace was met by the faces of comrades who had witnessed his rebirth and battle with awe and reverence. The once isolated pilot, bound to a wheelchair and plagued by doubts, had become a living legend, a symbol of humanity's tenacity and capacity to rise beyond even the most devastating losses. Pilots who had once doubted, engineers inspired by his resolve, commanders who placed their faith in his unyielding spirit, they all gathered, a family forged in fire and hope. Yet, beneath the accolades and the glowing eyes, Jace sought something far deeper, a purpose that transcended war, a peace that had long eluded his grasp. The days that followed were a tumultuous blend of recovery, reflection, and preparation. Jace endured rigorous medical treatments to maintain the delicate balance between his organic body and the exosuit's neural interface. He underwent therapy not just for the physical scars, but for the mental and emotional toll of a lifetime marked by conflict. The weight of command rested heavy, but it was the responsibility to rebuild, to ensure that the lives lost were not in vain, that steeled his resolve. Alongside his trusted squadron, he helped strategize the next phase of the Alliance's efforts, knowing full well that the alien menace would regroup, evolve, and return with even greater fury. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, a new chapter was beginning, not just for the war, but for the man who had become its reluctant hero. Jace found solace in the bonds forged through adversity, the laughter of young recruits who saw in him a mentor, the unwavering loyalty of comrades who stood beside him in the darkest hours, and the quiet moments of connection with those who understood the price of survival. He began to dream not only of victory, but of renewal, of a galaxy where children could grow without fear and where the scars of war could heal beneath the light of distant suns. In a private chamber aboard the flagship, Jace stood before a holographic map of the stars, tracing the pathways of both ally and enemy. The neural interface hummed softly, linking his thoughts to the vessel's vast databanks. He knew the fight was far from over. The alien fleet, fractured but not broken, was retreating to dark corners of the galaxy, their true motives and origins still a mystery wrapped in enigma. The Alliance needed to prepare for the long struggle ahead, to unite fractured systems and rally the hearts of millions. And Jace Pilot, warrior, survivor would lead that charge, a beacon of hope in a universe fraught with peril. As he gazed out into the infinite expanse, memories of his journey flickered like stars within his mind. The crash that shattered his body, the months of agony and doubt, the moment he first took the controls of the Valkyrie 7 and felt the surge of purpose return, and the fierce battles that had tested every fiber of his being. He remembered the faces of those he fought to protect, the fallen heroes whose sacrifice paved the path to this fragile dawn, and the promise he had made to himself and to humanity, to never surrender, to rise again, no matter the cost. The war would rage on, but the spirit of humanity embodied in the heart and soul of a pilot who refused to be defined by loss would endure. The stars beckoned, vast and unyielding, but within that endless night shone a light brighter than any weapon, a light born of resilience, courage, and hope. Commander Jace Alaric, the man who had lost his legs but found his wings anew, was ready to carry that light forward. And so, beneath the watchful gaze of distant suns, a new era began, one forged in the crucible of sacrifice and tempered by the unbreakable will of a warrior who became the galaxy's only hope.